All right, I would like to thank everyone for attending our 4th annual Knology Education Series event. As mentioned before, the reason for these webinars is that there's a lot happening in the technology industry today. It can definitely be overwhelming for those not in the technology industry to keep up on all of the information and technologies available. We hope these sessions can bring some clarity to some of the different technology buzzwords that are being used in the industry now. The topic we are covering today is desktop management platforms. Here's how this will work. This is a listen-only event. If you do have any questions, please chat them in and we will save time at the end to address as many as we can. Following this session, we will introduce some future topics that we hope you will be interested in learning more about. And you will be receiving an email as well that will contain a short survey that we hope you will take the time to fill out, as it will assist us in making future sessions more informative. We hope you find this session valuable and helpful to your business. The presenter today is Drew Embury. Drew is the Executive Vice President and a partner in P&L Technology. He helped establish the company back in 2004 and is continuing to assist in developing new technology strategies that can help local businesses. With that, I will hand things off to Drew.
Great. Thanks a lot, Matt. We've got a great topic today in desktop management tools. Before we started here, I took a look at the attendee list for this webinar, and it looks like we have a wide mix of people on the webinar today. We have some IT professionals who are looking to add tools to automate routine tasks and reclaim time in their day. And we have some existing P&L Technology customers that are interested in learning a little more how we can help manage their networks or some of the tools we have at our disposal. This particular webinar is going to be a little different from the last several we've done, where it's going to be a hands-on presentation of the tool, where we actually demonstrate many of the features involved in the desktop management system. As well, the content today is going to be aimed a little more at the technical IT folks or detail-driven managers that have IT in their reporting responsibilities. So what are we going to cover today? Well, we're going to cover why is desktop management important to IT professionals and IT management alike. We're going to examine some key questions to ask yourself if a desktop management system is right for you. And then we're going to get into the meat of the proposal, where we introduce the P&L Technology Managed Services Systems capabilities. And we're going to leave plenty of time at the end for question and answer. So let's move on. So why is desktop management so important to IT professionals, and why is it gaining in relevance today? Well, the number one thing we hear is always time savings. Does anybody really have enough time anymore? The IT people that we talk to are tasked not only with keeping the lights on, so to speak, keeping systems up and running and applications available and keeping the employees that utilize those systems and applications productive, but many well-run businesses also task their IT department with evolving business processes to drive out costs, reduce errors, and so on. What we hear from the IT professionals when we talk to them is oftentimes the mundane day-to-day tasks of keeping the systems up and running can really overpower the time they have available for the more strategic, forward-thinking tasks. One IT person I talked to the other day, he had about 50 PCs under management, and he was spending most of his time running around the building keeping those 50 PCs and all the associated applications and servers and network equipment and so on up and running. This particular person was also tasked with evaluating an enterprise replacement software for their organization and getting mobile devices out to all of the mobile employees that this particular organization had. But the immediate needs of the day-to-day tasks were making it very difficult for him to even think about getting started on some of those more proactive or strategic tasks. So desktop management could be a great way for him to reduce or eliminate some of the mundane, repetitive tasks and reclaim some hours. Another one we hear is standardization. There are a lot of tasks in the IT world that still require the technician or who's ever in charge of the system to just walk around to each PC and perform certain tasks like upgrading software or configuring settings. And does anybody really like doing that or think that's a great use of their time? The other thing is when you have to do a series of procedures on 50 PCs, can you really be sure you get it done right on each PC? Desktop management can eliminate a lot of this activity and reduce the IT support burden in situations such as that. Asset tracking is also a big part of standardization. Businesses often need to upgrade PCs or have are bringing in new applications that have new requirements and have to make sure that the systems they have in place are capable of running those new applications. For example, we worked with a customer the other day that was bringing in a new application that required at least 4 gigabytes of memory on each one of their computers. Their question to us was how many of their PCs are capable of doing this. Unless you've got great documentation or a system like desktop management, again, you need to walk around to each PC and take a look at the configuration to make sure that can support the new requirements of the business. Another thing that keeps coming up that is driving some customers to desktop management are more regulated environments. So people in the securities industry or in the healthcare industry or other industries that have to report to somebody, they must be able to report and show compliance with things such as security patch management, be able to audit the PCs to make sure that they're being used in an appropriate fashion and so on. So let's move on to the next slide where we examine some key questions to ask yourself if a desktop management system is right for you or in your organization. Probably the first thing we look at is really how many PCs do you have to manage. The general rule of thumb is the more PCs to manage, the greater returns you're going to get from deploying a desktop management product. We start to see interest from customers or prospects when they have around 20 to 30 PCs, but and the returns simply go up as you get more and more PCs. If you manage 50 PCs or more, you will likely get huge returns from deploying a desktop management system. The reason for this is obviously the more PCs you manage, the more difficult as well as time-consuming it gets to keep everything standardized, using the traditional walk around to each PC method. And the more difficult it gets to keep documentation up to date, such as asset lists and configurations as the day-to-day changes of the business drive configuration changes to the network. Another real common request that we hear that drives customers to desktop management is license management becoming more of a challenge for the organization. We often have prospects tell us it's a huge challenge to make sure their licensing is up to date. A real common question like, we just hired a new employee and they're going to need a copy of Microsoft Project to do their job. Do we have a license for that or do we need to buy one? Companies are always making changes. They're decommissioning old PCs to have software licenses on them. They're buying new PCs and potentially wanting to transfer licenses from PCs. They hire employees that need licenses. They terminate employees that then obviously won't need that software license anymore. And over time, it can become very difficult to track where those license assets are deployed. Oftentimes this can end up with employees having a license on their PC for a software product they don't even need for their role in the company, or the company being out of compliance with licenses by having more installed than they legally own. So desktop management can provide some significant relief there as well, and we will be demoing that later. Another question we ask is, could your organization benefit from proactive monitoring? Nobody likes to be surprised by IT problems such as a server down. Monitoring can oftentimes detect issues proactively so they can be addressed before they turn into a serious problem. Monitoring can check system health stats such as low drive space conditions, CPU and memory utilization where something is overutilizing the processor in a server, ensuring devices are reachable on the network such as the internet connection is up, and even look for serious event logs issues in servers where the server is logging something in its event log, but unless somebody is looking at that proactively, they're not getting alerted to that pending event. Another key question we look is, could you benefit from security improvements? Ensuring security updates and patch management compliance is a very important part of having a well-run IT department. Patch management tools, which are often part of a desktop management system, can ease the burden significantly of ensuring that all patches are deployed and also cutting down the time it takes to deploy those for the IT administrator. So now that we've looked at some key questions, let's go ahead and get into the meat of our presentation today, which is actually the introduction of the system and the demo of its capabilities. So an overview of the areas we're going to cover today. The desktop management system is a very comprehensive system. I could spend several hours on it easily, so we kind of winnowed down to some of the more interesting components of it. We have committed to keeping these webinars to about a half an hour and also leaving some time at the end for questions. So we're going to cover just the first 5 points today. And those are a brief introduction of how the system works. We're going to cover auditing, reporting, remote control of systems, and agent procedures. Some of the other capabilities that we may leave for future webinars are the monitoring and the patch management and more features that I didn't even have room on this slide to list. So let's start with how the system works. The desktop management system we're looking at today is a software as a service application where the database and the application live in P&L Technology's private cloud. So it's hosted in our data center. Then there is a lightweight agent, a small piece of software that gets installed on each managed PC in your organization, or you can use some built-in deployment tools to automatically distribute the agent to all the PCs in your organization. The entire system from the user interface to the agents all use secure socket layers or SSL, so it will work even with remote PCs that are not on your local area network. So I'm going to go ahead and share my web browser with you here. Which you should see now. And I'm going to go ahead and type the URL into the system, which will bring up the login page. And I'll go ahead and log in using my credentials. And it will log me into the system. So the system is oriented by a series of modules, which are down the left-hand side here. So you can see some of the modules that I covered. Today we're going to focus on the agent module, the audit module, the reporting module, and the remote control module. So I'll start with the agent module. The agent module simply shows us, I'm going to switch here to a different group. The agent module shows us a particular organization that we're looking at here that has about 78 machines in their organization. The organization has an agent installed on all those PCs, which then report into the centralized system and the database. The agent will scan each PC daily, so the information is always up to date in the database as far as configuration, patch status, monitoring status, really everything about that particular PC. There's also a series of icons here down the left-hand side. The green icon denotes that this PC is currently online, so it's booted up and running right now. The gray icon denotes that the PC is currently off. And the little people icon with the blue shading denotes that that particular user is currently logged in and using the machine, where the yellow states they're currently logged in, but they're inactive at the time. We can also see some various information here, like who's currently using that PC. And if nobody's currently using that PC over here, who the last person to use that PC was. We can also see some information such as the last time that PC was rebooted, the last time the agent checked in, IP addressing, and so on and so forth here. Let's go ahead and get right into the auditing, which is a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and flip the system over to the Audit tab. And I'm going to pull up a machine in the audit summary here. So this particular machine here, I'm viewing this machine here with the name DB793NK1. And I can see here now a complete summary of the information in this PC. I can see the name of the computer. I can see this computer is a Windows XP station that does have Service Pack 3 installed it. And then I can see some summary of the configuration. This is a Dell Precision M6400 computer. We have the serial number here. One of the neat things about the serial number is you see it is underlined as a hyperlink. By clicking to that, it takes me directly to Dell's support site for that particular PC, where I can do things such as check the warranty status. So I can see this PC did go out of warranty in June. And I can also look at things like the original system configuration as it shipped from Dell. If it was under warranty, I could go ahead and write from this interface, create a warranty service request if I had a bad part in it, or I could do things like renew and upgrade the warranty right from the interface here. Let's go ahead and flip back over to the summary field here. We can also see some summary information on the CPU and memory in that system. We can see it has an Intel Core 2 dual processor. We can see the system currently has about 4 gigs or right under 4 gigs of memory in it. And we've got some IP address information and gateway information in here. Now that we've reviewed the summary of the hardware of the system, let's go ahead and look at the software on this system. And I will flip over to the Software tab, which opens a sub-series of tabs here, which I will then select Software Licenses. This is a very handy feature. It'll show me all the Microsoft and Adobe licenses on this system. Where this can be really handy is if this system were to fail and need to be rebuilt, I could easily come in here and see, okay, which Windows XP license, what's the license code? There it is right there. So I can reinstall that system with the same license code and make sure I stay license compliant. I can also see that this system has a copy of Microsoft Office Standard 2007 on it, and again the key code. So if I need to reinstall Office, I can get the proper key code back on there and make sure I stay in license compliance. I can also drill down a little bit more into the hardware, which can be very helpful for an IT person working on a station. To do that, I'm going to click the Hardware tab up here. And you'll notice some of the same information we saw from the summary, but I've got a lot more detail now. One of the real common things we have to do is add memory to systems. Business is bringing in another application, or a user is complaining their PC is slow, and we need to know if there's an open memory slot to add more memory. So we can do that by simply going down here to Memory Devices, and I can see this particular system has 4 slots. That's these 4 slots here, and only 2 of them are filled right now with 2 GB memory modules. So I know that I can add 2 more modules to this system easily. If I were to come in here and see that all those modules were filled, then I knew I'd probably have to restart over with greater density memory. Another thing, there's a lot of other hardware information available here, such as printers. I could click the Printers tab and be able to see that this particular PC has access to these 3 network printers. And I can also see that this particular PC has an HP DeskJet 6940 that's direct attached to the USB port on there. So that can be real handy for trying to keep track of where all your software assets are, where all your hardware assets are by using this. Another important feature is the Disk Volumes tab. By looking at the Disk Volumes tab, I can look at the size of the disk in this unit. So this has got a 150 gig hard drive in it, and it's only got 20 gigs free. This is especially useful for servers where there's never enough space available in servers, and if they run out of space, really bad things can happen. So a tool like this can help us keep track of those particular items. So we've drilled down. There's a lot of other detail here, but I'm just kind of giving you a taste today of what the system can do. We've looked at individual PCs, but oftentimes it's helpful to look at your PCs as a whole in something like a spreadsheet. So let's do that now. To do that, we're going to flip over from the Audit module to the Info Center module. I've got a bunch of pre-canned reports I've already written here. And one of the ones we're going to look at today is the P&L Technology Computer Inventory Report. So I'm going to go ahead and run that now. And it's going to query that entire organization and present me with a list of all of the PCs there. So it'll take a moment while this report queries the database and pulls all the fields out that I'm asking it for. This particular report is in Microsoft Excel, so I am going to have to share my Microsoft Excel with you so you can see that. You should be able to see my Microsoft Excel application or spreadsheet right now, and we've got a complete list now of 70 or 80, about 80 PCs in this particular organization. We've got the name of the machine, we've got the operating system version, the user that uses that PC, the CPU, the amount of memory, the manufacturer, and the serial number. So this can be really helpful if the organization decides, you know what, it's really time, Windows XP is getting a little old, we need to get everybody up to Windows 7. We can instantly go in and get a real quick count of how many Windows 7s we have, how many Windows XP we have, and then we can take a look at things like the CPU. We probably know that some of these older Intel Pentium 4s aren't going to run Windows 7 real well, or any of these systems with only 1 GB of memory are going to run Windows 7 very well. So by using this spreadsheet, we can easily put together a recommendation of how many new machines we're going to need to bring in Windows 7, how many machines can support an upgrade, where we just have to buy an upgrade, and how many machines are already on Windows 7. The report generator is also completely customizable, and I can show you real quick how that works. By right-clicking the report and doing Edit Report, I can pull any of the fields out of the database we're querying that I want to on my reports. So here, for example, I've got serial number. Let's decide we don't need that. I'll remove that. And we also want, let's find something else we want to we want to look at. We want to know the DNS server. We want to make sure that the DNS server on that on those particular PCs are set properly. A lot of times this is good for making sure your users aren't accidentally changing things they shouldn't, or if you're having any kind of network issues, it's a nice way to make sure everything's configured the same. So we'll go ahead and save that report now, and we'll rerun that report. And again, it'll take a moment while it queries the database. And then now you can see the updated report, and we do have the DNS server listed over here. And then we can search through it and see why maybe some of these are set a little different than the others. So this might be a PC we would want to look at. Why is this piece, the DNS server on this PC set differently than this one? That might be something the IT person would want to look at. So we've looked at hardware reports. Let's look at the software reports. That's another really common request we have. So another scenario that you might use the reporting for is, the organization's got a lot of older PCs on Office 2003, and they've made a decision as an organization that they want to go to Office 2010. So they need to know how many PCs are on 2003, how many are already on 2007, or maybe some on 2007. So what we can do is the software license report here. Again, it's a pre-canned report that can be edited, but we're going to run it just as it sits today. We'll wait while it queries the database. This particular report is pulling a few more fields, so it's taking a little bit longer than the other one. Still running. I'm going to try it once more. I'm wondering if I have something. There we go. I was hoping we wouldn't hit Murphy's Law where anytime you do a demo, something doesn't work. But we're in good shape here. So this shows us a summary of the licenses. We do see this particular company has 2 servers that are currently running Windows Server 2003. We also see a summary of the workstation licenses where they've got 1 person running Windows 7 32-bit and 9 people running Windows 7 64-bit. They also have 65 stations that are currently running Windows XP. So this particular organization, then they would know instantly that if all their PCs were capable of being upgraded, they would just need to order 65 licenses of Windows 7 to get everybody on the same version. Probably more interesting is the Microsoft Office license. This shows us the complete breakdown of Office 2010. They've got 1 user on that, 66 users on 2007, and 2, 3, 4 users that are not on at least version 2007. So if this particular organization decided, you know what, we don't need everybody to go to 2010 because that would be a little expensive. Let's just get everybody on at least 2007. They would know that they would have 4 people that they would need then to buy additional licenses for to get version 2007. Drilling down from the summary, we also have the license detail where we could find, let's go ahead and scroll down here. So here's Microsoft Office Professional 2007 and a list of each PC in the organization that runs that software. So this can be very useful to make sure you've got the right licenses deployed on the right PCs. We've got 1 PC with Office Standard, and then we can go ahead and look here. Here's that PC with Office XP still. So this would be one of the PCs we would have to go and install the new upgrade on. So the license report can be a very helpful way when doing upgrades or just seeing what you've got installed where and making sure it's the right for the organization. Let's go ahead and move on now to remote control. Remote control is great for IT people. You get that call, you're sitting at your desk. The users aren't quite as knowledgeable as you are with it, and they need you they want to show you an error message on the screen, or they want you to walk through something you've probably done 100 times. So rather than get up from your desk and walk over to where the user is, or maybe that user is even in another city or across town, or working from home that day, the remote control can be a great way to accomplish some of those features. So I'm going to flip back to the Agent tab, and then I'm going to flip over to a test machine I have ready so I don't disturb anybody who's really working here. So we're going to launch a feature called Live Connect. And Live Connect, we basically just click on this little icon here, and it opens up a separate tab. So this tab is specific to this PC. We see down the left-hand side here. Kind of wait while this tab loads. There we go. We can drill into the audit information from here as well. So here's the audit information, the system info, the disk volumes, the memory chips, all of those things that we saw before. We also have a thumbnail. So this is a little thumbnail of what's going on that PC currently right now. This can be really useful if you need to do some maintenance on a PC, but you don't want to disturb the person if they're working. So by looking at the thumbnail, you can see if they're moving stuff around, or if the PC doesn't really change for a few minutes, they're probably stepped away from their desk, and it'd be easy to jump on their PC and do the maintenance you need to do. There's a lot of other really handy features for the IT administrator here. One is the complete file manager. The file manager opens up a file transfer, a wizard probably like you've seen before 100 times, where you can transfer files from your computer that you're on to the remote computer. So if I wanted to go and get a copy of this Adobe debug log, I could simply take that and let's go ahead and do that here. Drag that over to my C drive, and now I've got a copy of that transferred over to my C drive where I can look at that and work with it however I want. I can also transfer files the other way, obviously, as well. We also have a remote command shell editor, which is really handy. It'll essentially open up a remote DOS prompt on my station here, so I can issue DOS commands on that remote station. And the cool thing about this is the user doesn't really even see this. So if I need to make just a quick change to their PC, I don't even have to kick them off to make that change using the remote DOS prompt. We also have a remote registry editor, where if there's any changes, maybe a software vendor that you work recommends a registry change to work on a problem you've been having. You can make that registry change using the tool, again, without having to disturb the user at all. We also have a remote task manager. This can be really handy if you need to kill processes, or seeing which processes are using the CPU. You will notice over here when I did the Live Connect to this particular remote PC, I do get a CPU and a memory graph, but I can also drill down individually to see which processes are using that CPU. I can start and stop services. So if we've got a Windows service that needs to be started and stopped, we can do that. Extra handy on servers. We don't have to log into the server to do it. We can do it from the tool. We can review additional performance stats similar to the little thumbnails we had up there, but also network and disk I/O statistics. We can check the users which are logged in to the system. We can do things like reboot the system, or power it off, or log off the current session. This can be real handy if there are situations where when you're trying to remote into a PC or remote into a server, and something's hung up on it, so you can't get logged in remotely. You can still use this tool to reboot it. This has saved my hide more than once, I can tell you. We also have an event viewer. We can view events that have been logged to the application or the system log on those stations. And the cool thing about this is it's all in the database. So even if we have a system down, we can review the event log before it went down to see if there's any clues on what happened there. We have a chat function too, where we can open up a chat window with that remote user. But probably the coolest thing is the desktop access. So this is where I want to remote on a system and work with the user and do some work. We have two functions. We've got a remote desktop session, or we can do a VNC session. If I'm working with the users, I typically choose VNC, because then we can work together. They can see me moving the mouse. I can see them moving the mouse, and we can collaborate together on the issue. So now we're connecting that system, and there we've got the remote screen, and I can work on that system just like I was sitting there. So that's really a look at the remote control. Let's go ahead now and move back to agent procedures. The agent procedures is one of the most comprehensive modules. So again, I'm afraid in our time limit we have today, we're just going to be able to scratch the surface on agent procedures, but it is probably the most powerful function. So what agent procedures are is how many times have you had to run around to each PC you manage to perform some task? That's some of the worst work in the IT world, and it can take forever. It's really easy to miss steps or to miss an entire computer. Oh, I forgot that computer way back in the warehouse. I was doing this, and then it causes issues, and you've got to go back, and it's just not a good scenario for everybody. You've got to do something 50 times in a row. It's very easy to make mistakes. So the idea behind procedures is you can write a procedure once and then deploy it as often you need to, really with just a few clicks. So what can procedures do? Well, they can really do about anything. They can install software. They can edit registry keys. They can copy files. They can create user accounts. They can run any kind of remote command. They can start and stop services. They can reboot machines. Really almost anything you can think of an agent procedure can do. So there's a lot of pre-written procedures in the system already, which you can kind of see listed there. And they typically also make a great starting spot if you want to customize your needs. If you want to set a procedure up to install some software, you can go find another procedure that already installs some software and then edit it for that particular software package. And you also have the ability to write procedures from scratch as well. So let's look at a real common scenario. One is, everybody in your office is on an Adobe 8 reader. And we know there's some security issues with that. We know there's some newer PDFs that come out that don't work very well with the older versions. So you decide everybody needs Adobe Reader 9.3. So what we can do is we've got a pre-written procedure already for that. And let's install Adobe Reader 9 right there. And if we view the procedure, we can kind of see how it works behind the scenes. It'll take just a minute to bring it up. And so what we're doing is we've already got a copy of the Adobe Reader software on our management server, which is the one in our data center. And then we're essentially just downloading that behind the scenes to the PC and then running a silent install to install that. So after I found the procedure I want, and I'm certain that's how I want to work, I can simply come in here and check which PCs I want to get that procedure, or if it's all, I can use the little select all function here. And I can either schedule it to run overnight if it's something where I don't want it to run now, or I can simply click the Run Now button. Now, I'm not going to click this because we've already got that, and I might create more problems than I need right now. So that's a real common usage, is installing software. Another one is pushing registry changes. Again, I had a situation the other day where there was a customer who had 20 PCs, and their particular software vendor recommended we made a registry change to do something called disable opportunistic locking. It's a technical thing that they had determined their software works best if that particular feature is disabled. So I went in here and created an agent procedure that I named Disable Workstation Op Locks. And if we view that procedure, we see here that it's creating 7 different registry keys on that system and setting the values as the software vendor recommended. So after spending about 5 minutes creating that script, I went to Schedule, I clicked All, and I just clicked Run Now. And this is why the users were using. I didn't have to disturb anybody. I didn't have to kick anybody off their PC. Their software was then configured the way that the vendor wanted it. So those are just a few things the agent procedures can do. Again, we can only scratch the surface today. So that's Matt. We kind of came to the end of the hands-on demo today. Have we had any questions that have come up?
Yeah, Drew. It looks like we got 3 questions that were chatted into us during the presentation, and so at this point we'll start answering those questions. The first one that was chatted in was, how labor-intensive is it to load these agents on end users' machines, and will these end users' PCs be affected?
No, that's a great question. It's very, very easy. There's a couple different ways. Let me go ahead and share my application here again. I flipped back, so there's 2 things we can do. Now you should see my browser here again. One is we can just go to the agent download page. So tl.asp. So here's basically the install packages. Basically, I just click Workstation Install Package. It's a 1 meg download, and it'll install in about 30 seconds. So you could basically go to each PC and click install there, and that's all you have to do. There's also an automated deployment tool, which is really cool. So what we do there is we go to the agent module, and we come in to LandWatch. So what LandWatch is we have a single PC, which actually looks like we've got it on 2 here, that we install the agent on manually, like I just showed you. We configure a LandWatch. What the LandWatch does is scan the network every day and report back into the system any computers that do not have the agent on it. We then click over here to install agents, and we can pick one of the computers. So here's a bunch of computers it's reporting that do not have the agent on it. Now some of them are Cisco routers and things that necessarily wouldn't run the agent, but I could basically go in here and click Select All, put in the admin credentials, and click Install, and it would install the software automatically to every PC in the organization. So really easy to do, really easy to keep up to date. Not a lot of effort for the administrator.
All right, and then the next question was, does this cost your client any more money to have access to this desktop management platform?
For any existing P&L Technology managed services customers, we actually include this, and we use this behind the scenes pretty heavily. So, anytime any of our existing customers, if they call in and they say, "Hey, we're looking at replacing half our PCs next year. We know it's time. Which ones would you recommend?" I'll use that spreadsheet just like I showed you earlier to go through and get a spreadsheet. I'll add my notes into a column. Identify the 10 worst PCs maybe that customer should start thinking about replacing, and use that. For any other prospects that are interested in the tool, but we essentially have some pricing depending on the number of units you need. That's a kind of a per seat per month. It's only a couple of dollars per seat per month. It's not a huge investment to add on and give you those tools to get time out of your day.
All right, and the final question that we have was, does this software also proactively manage and monitor the servers and virtual machines?
Yes, it does. All those functions work just fine with servers as well as virtual machines. Virtual machines are no different from a regular server. The agent gets installed on the virtual machine and really runs flawlessly. And really, we get some of the best bang for the buck out of managing servers, especially with the monitoring and things. We weren't able to get into it a lot today because of our time constraints, but the monitoring has some extremely powerful things in it, such as looking for low drive space, or looking for an error that's buried in the event log that may signify you have a failing disk or a failing RAID controller. And the other really cool thing, frankly, is the monitoring can also fire off some of the agent procedures we looked at. So if you detect in your system that your IIS website isn't responding right now to traffic, you can then fire off an agent procedure that would restart the service, or run a script or a command, or really anything that you've determined is necessary then to restore that site. So by using the monitoring and the agent procedures, you can have a completely hands-off resolution to certain issues that come up in the IT world.
All right, well, thanks a lot, Drew, and it looks like that will be the conclusion of our webinar on desktop management platforms. If any of you attendees have any additional questions, or you happen to show up late, we will be emailing out the webinar for you to view, and it will also be posted on our website at www.pltechnology.com. The next webinar will be covering the topic of mobile workforces. It will take place on February 9th at 10 a.m., and we will be sending a registration out for that soon. Thanks again for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day.